Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Good morning. Right, well, pretty tight range overnight. Let's get into the links here and give everybody the links. There's that. And here is my YouTube link. And here, and then that tells you how far delayed we are. Only a few seconds, I guess, but still. I just want to check here. Oh, they were talking about how we did actually eventually pop higher from where we were yesterday, which was kind of interesting. Okay, so here's our chart. Was quite range bound yesterday, but they did eventually pop up, and now today we've spent the whole session above yesterday, but it's been pretty tight here as well. The E-mini has come down slightly and is reverting back to the mean. So just based on the fact that it's already doing it, I think that they may try and push back into the previous day's range. Was there any news? Let's see, I need to close a couple of tabs here. Was there any news, big news that I'm missing here? Tesla shares fall after SEC asks judge to hold Elon Musk in contempt for violating deal. Well, that sucks, Elon. You know what? I kind of wonder sometimes, if I was CEO of a company, would I do dumb and impulsive things like Elon Musk does? Or like Martin Shkreli did? I don't know. It's kind of funny that this whole thing has been happening. Caterpillar shares drop after UBS double downgrades to sell, citing slowing construction sales. Okay, so those are the things that are pushing us today. It is Tuesday, which means building permits and housing starts, which would be quite an interesting setup, since they're already talking about Caterpillar, and that would be somebody that would be influenced by that. By here we can see just here in the first 5 minutes, very, very slow. Very, very slow. Okay. Well, let's pull up the YouTubes. Somebody left a comment on my this video. Yeah, you know what? I'm really sick of these ads. I apologize to you guys that get these like full minute ads. Like, that's ridiculous. I might just have to go in and change that, because watching like a good grief. I don't know if it's just my channel though. It's probably not just my channel, because I get that stuff on like every channel that I visit. These like several minute long. How much do you think they pay for those kinds of ads? This is kind of ridiculous, right? Anyways. Good morning, good morning. Let's pull this down here. Let's pull up the tweeters. Mar-a-Lago summit a priority for Chinese officials as trade talks continue. Maturing Treasuries on the Fed's balance sheet. Ooh. I see. It's every other month, too. Well, certain months where they more are to die off. Excuse me. Okay. There was another tick up. Just should note. Okay, so today we've got a little bit of news here at 6:30. Still a little bit of trade news going on, but still going into the roll. I think trade could continue to be very range bound, and the volume that we've had here at the beginning is very, very tight. A big factor is going to be what the E-mini is doing. Euro USD defines the boundaries. Range is narrow. Yes, I kind of see that. Well, I think that JPY key busy today. Lots of housing data. Okay, U.S. December housing starts 1,078K versus 1,256K. So pretty terrible news. Okay, they did bust through there. Nobody's selling back into 07.5. That's interesting. They're selling it back into 08. Building permits 1.326 million versus a 1.290 million. Okay. So the news is a little bit mixed, isn't it? All right, fine. Fine. Do it. U.S. Philadelphia Fed non-manufacturing business outlook for February is 10. The previous month being 1. That's good. Don't think I want this anymore. If I maybe see some like absorption and back ticking up here, I might actually go short. Because the treasuries have gone too far, all things considered. but JPY did move up there with it. $7K at 08, huh? And they tick back up. So that iceberg at 08 held. That's interesting to me. Notice, though, the cumulative delta is flipping around. And there's another take. Okay. So that there might be. Lucy says, damn it, I missed the pop again, saying goodbye to the wife. I hate Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can't miss the 8:30 news. Although, you know what? I kind of feel like it came up a little bit. It came up fast, and, the price that I tried taking I wasn't able to get filled on. And I'm just watching this thing, the way that it's going right now is pretty... Single family housing starts down 10%, the lowest since August of 2016. Multifamily housing starts down 15%. Ugh. The housing numbers are really bad. I was thinking, rollover soon, low volume, wouldn't miss much. I wasn't even thinking about it. Right. I mean, that's kind of the way that I'm thinking too. Although Alligator kind of put me in my place there when he pointed out, there is some news, and so we could have a busy day. I have to say, we have moved up quite a bit here, and they're pushing through decent numbers here to get to 09.5. But the volume and everything else, in my opinion, doesn't completely fit. I suppose they could distribute around here, but as I see it right now, I see something that looks like it has a very high probability of flipping. Okay, well, now the E-mini actually has moved down a little bit, so maybe that does give us a little bit more room. Wow. It's interesting. I see Nassim Taleb on Twitter very often pointing out research studies and things in his field that he disagrees with. So here, somebody did a study that showed that IQ at age 10 was more predictive of financial success than other factors. And he just says, no, it doesn't. Care to elaborate, Nassim? Okay. See, I'm not seeing like the clear like it's done. Yeah, I ain't buying the damn high though. Yeah, exactly. I think that you probably I'm looking for something like what we saw yesterday, like a really a really obvious flickery absorption and back ticking, or a really obvious stack trying to push it up and get filled of some sort. See, they pushed to new highs, and you got a little bit of cumulative delta long, a little bit, but it didn't beat out the previous cumulative delta high. And now you're already seeing some fairly big guys selling. The E-mini has not really moved though. 10 years at 2.641. Zero hedge pointing out. He's clearly watching things closely. On this move, the JPY did move up quite a bit. I don't know if there's more in it or not. EU official Brexit delay of a couple of months would be relatively straightforward. Ah, yes, you see. So, did you guys hear yesterday that the Labour has U.S. housing crash starts crashed in December? The Labour guys in the UK government said that they're going to push forward that they have a second referendum. What happens if Commons votes down the deal on the 12th, says no to deal on 13th, and then yes against a short extension on the 14th? Ooh, but that's that's a couple of days away, isn't it? Okay, now I'm seeing something that maybe I could potentially take short. If Britain requests Brexit delay, EU would consider it favorably. Exactly. So what's happening is they were saying, well, they could extend it, and then everybody's saying, well, is that possible? Because there's like a deadline here, and it was like, well, yeah, but the EU can extend that deadline, and of course they're going to extend that deadline because honestly, the real truth here is that the EU doesn't want the UK to leave, and they'll do anything that they can to accommodate them not leaving. That's why they're going to be as tough as possible and give them as terrible of a deal as they can to discourage them from leaving. And then they'll accommodate. And okay, see right there, I was like, maybe we could go short at 0.85. No, it's still not. It's still not giving it up. And then anything that they can do, they would accommodate having another referendum and not leaving. They're gonna do. The EU, if we don't get what we want, we vote again. It's laughable that they have a higher democracy score than we do. Lol. Man. You know, I was reading the Reddit thread about this yesterday, and somebody was arguing with me that, like, it doesn't make any sense to go through with it because it was a bad election. Do you see what's happened though the past few years, right? Because there are a lot of people that think that Donald Trump shouldn't be president because they think that the election was influenced by foreign people and people made a bad decision and we should be able to mulligan it over. And you can't just change the rules of democracy halfway through democracy. How can anybody trust the system if you're doing that, right? Like, I actually think that it probably would have been a good idea to have a second referendum. But you can't do that and say that now. You should have said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a referendum that is going to be like, do we actually want to investigate this? And then if, okay, nope, still nope. And then if it passes, we'll go through the process. And then at the end of the process, we'll have another referendum for sure. Right? Then it would have been okay. But of course, the people that did the first referendum, which I understand were the anti-leavers people, didn't really think that through very well, did they? Russian ads on Facebook are what kept us conservatives for voting for Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, right? The thing that I think is so funny about the whole Russian interference thing is that the advertisements that they made were dumb. Intentionally dumb, actually. And as far as I can tell, the only goal was to divide Americans. Really. That's why they were so bad. Was they were bad to try and make, like, the other side be like, look at how ridiculous the other side is. $2.25. There they're going again. There you go. So there's a new high. 1293 into the new high too. They say social media ads and Twitter bots. The majority of Americans don't bother with Twitter at all. Only a moron would believe foreign influence swayed the election when the candidate that won lost the popular vote. Right. I don't think that it affected the final result. But the thing that irks me so much about it. Oh wait, Kim stopped in China for supreme smoke break during 2,500-mile trip to Hanoi. The thing that bothers me about it is that everything that we've been told from the intelligence community is that the Russians wanted to divide Americans and to weaken the trust in democracy. Well, what has been the end result of all of this stuff? It's weakened support in democracy. Okay, that's it right there. That's another funny thing, divide Americans. Yeah, because 5 years ago, liberals and conservatives liked each other. So I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know if I want to go into this quite yet. Where's my? Oh, actually, we do got. Okay, maybe we're okay. Um, fix that. There we go. Okay. The only thing that's changed is the idiots willing to street fight over politics and the idiots willing to fake hate crimes for attention. Lol. So I don't think that this is working out, this trade. Already, I saw a potential signal and I got filled at the place that I wanted, but I can see the Japanese yen appears to be still interested in moving higher, and they're fighting it at 0.95. So hold on here. Okay, so I'll shift gears for a second here, but stick with me for a second because we'll come back to that. There's this documentary on Netflix now that I watched last night called Behind the Curve. And it is about, okay, hey, that's what I want. That's what I want, but they're still going up. sorry, I'll stop. This is super interesting. No, I have a really good thought, but let's continue it a little bit later when it's calmed down. I'm 2010 now. Only a few hit into 10 half. The question is, so the level above us that we got to watch for is 12. 12 would be the previous pivot. See, that's hmm. That is not normal trending behavior, guys. Still, it looks good for more up, but I can't bring myself to buy this high. Yeah, I saw a good one there at 0.95. That trade is definitely not working. I'm not so sure that I want to buy into this iceberg here. That's the only thing yeah. Hmm. Okay, so there was a little bit of thickening up there, but there's that huge, yeah. And then they finally took it. So I think we're done.
Block buy.
When this flips. Yep. So there was a block buy at 11, and it didn't go through. Yeah, bro, we know if you're buying, the ripest place you have to get creamed is the high, right? Well, it's okay. I think that I should have been a little bit more cautious on taking a short there, but there was an actionable signal there, and they're still giving actionable signals, but they're not really playing through very well, are they? But this to me looks like people are setting up short. Yep, in terms of odds, that is. I'm still skeptical. There's way too much absorption on the offer here. And so what would be some things that would maybe make what's happening right now be wrong? E-mini's not moving. We kind of already knew that housing was bad. Those are two things. Now, that said, maybe that just means that the E-mini is a good short. Because really, to be going beyond 120, which was the high from February 20th, yeah, you could see the E-mini down a whole range here to like 2773. Yeah. Ace is going short. I personally wait for volume to drop below average. Right now, volume is way above its average in CP and above the VWAP. And when that volume starts to die off, I'd look for flow. So I want to see here what the E-mini is going to do, because it definitely is selling now. You saw a little bit of buying at 10.5, but then they're pushing it down, and it's fighting it at 10 again. Hmm. Hmm. I'd take a small short in ZN. That's what Thomas says. Yeah. Okay. So they are pushing it into 10.
Block buy.
Block buy at 10.5. If they can't break through 10.5 and we go offer at 10 again, that could be really ugly. Because there's somebody is market buying up here at the top and not getting not getting things to move with them. I still see a possibility of like another squeeze higher though. It's kind of like, oh, it's a really tough one, right? Because
you got enough people here taking it both ways that whichever way it's going to go, it could probably go for a bit. They squeeze higher, could probably beat out that 12, and if they squeeze lower, it could probably almost completely reverse. Yeah, the volume is still in March. Hmm. 7,000 versus 4,000 selling. Well, it's a tough call. I saw that the kind of action that made me believe that that 10.5 was going to be a difficult price, and it is doing what I expected it to do. That doesn't mean that they're not eventually going to go bid at 10.5, but it's been offered for quite some time, and it's had a pretty big offer on it at certain points. Now that 10 is being troublesome as well, though. You know. This is another zero hedge story about U.S. home price growth. Okay, so the home price index for December zero point 0.3 versus an expected zero point 0.4. Okay, so they were able to go bid there for a moment. The bid pulls again. Hmm. Hmm. They were able to make that go offer there at 10 a little too easily, but then they did buy it back up. It's kind of done that both ways now. Hmm. Anybody gonna hit into 09.5? The 5 year is not necessarily ticking down yet, so I don't necessarily see a reason for that offer to hold. Hmm. And somebody caught it that time, and they pulled in the 5 year, and it ticked down again. That's funny. Looks like a rogue market maker just wondering now if they can keep this up or what their plans are. Yeah, I really think that somebody was at 10 half and 10. I wouldn't say a rogue market maker, but somebody felt that we were going to go for that high and they did not get it. So he's got to be thinking right now about how much he believes in this trade. Is he believing it enough to stick it out at 09 half? Does he even have enough contracts to do anything now at this point? Or is he just stuck in it and he has to just wait it out? Oh, that's right. Chairman Powell is testifying today. Do you still think that Bitcoin will go to 4,200? Well, I think that it's possible, but keep in mind that the only reason that I keep what happens to the spring statement on March 13th? I don't know what that means. Anyways, keep in mind that when I say that Bitcoin can go up to 4,300, the only reason that we're interested in that price is because that would be the price at which like your chances of being able to hold a stop on a short are good. You know, because when we were at 3,700, I was like, I don't think that this is going to hold. But I knew that there's a possibility to go up to 4,300. Right? So it's like, can you really go short there? No, you can't. And we saw how that worked, right? Now that they've had that reversal, it's a little bit more difficult because they could still make that play. It depends on what kind of money the big guys have out there, and I think that there's always enough money to make a little move. So if a whale decided to buy it, I suppose that you could see a move to 4,300. But if they don't, kind of like what we're seeing right now, it's a long way down. I'd think a lower range trading in ES would help shorts, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Well, the thing that is curious is that the E-mini did not move. That whole thing, the E-mini is basically shrugging it off. So I think that ES is trying to say, okay, I just saw something there at 09. A little bit of backticking. See that? So 09 it is. I think there's too many people using these spots as exits now because having a hard time getting a fill. I see it's up again a little, testing the mid-range. Yeah. It's almost like the E-mini is saying that it's priced in. Okay.
So the JPY is flipping on its head too. You see this? Look at that. Don't think that that's positive. Bullish ZN 5-minute candle with volume is under the water now, exactly. Well, so cumulative delta wise, there's still some money that could come out of the 10-year, right? But ZF is really the one that's selling it. I'm always interested when a level starts to get bigger compared to the rest of the range. Yeah, that 10.5. Exactly where I took it to. So it could keep selling. Thomas says he's taking most of his paper short off. There they are again at 09. Oh man. Do I have to take this long? Oh, Digital Shot had it at 08.5. And he never sold it. That's interesting. Okay. So there's definitely something going on here. I think that could be a long signal at 09. I don't know if I'm going to get filled. You can see that they're not the selling has kind of disappeared. Come on, Thomas, give some of your money back. Stop being so selfish. This is so funny, dude. You did you get the full 2 ticks off of that short at that you took, Ace? Well, that looks like a no fill for me. I mean, I'm at 500, so it could happen, maybe. Ace only took a point on that one. I shouldn't say only, but good job. Sounds like Thomas had a long there, yeah.
Okay, well, they seem to be indicating that you are going to get 10. Ten half might be a little more tricky. I'll notice there's that big order in the 30 year. That's curious. I was short, but considering longs because it looked like a scary short. The time frame of this is, we're too close to the mini open now. So we'll see when they decide to go. I'm going to leave my order in there at 09 because I'm suspecting that I might be able to go short at 10.5 or maybe even get filled at 09 and take the tick up. But they couldn't even get past 10 that time. That's... Now it's pulling at 09. This is a really great example of how the luring works, isn't it? Because we got in, we knew that we were 500 in line, and at one point they had 5,000 stacked on it, and when we ticked back down, it pulled. And now only a few hundred have actually sold into it, so we're still not filled. Right? If you're a big guy and you want to buy, say, 2,000 contracts at 09, you don't want to have them sitting on the bid there because it's too... Nobody's selling into that. So they have to pull it, hope that people sell into it, and then if you still want to buy it, then you can do it. This is all very different from ES that I've been watching more. Well, I mean, they do the kind of the similar things, but it's a little bit harder to see it in the E-mini because it's happening at multiple prices, right? It's a little harder to judge for me, but you can do it, especially when you get like those bubbles. May I have not discussed Brexit delay with other EU leaders. Price action feels slower. Well, you got the pullback thing going on here now, right? I'd be careful in this kind of zone because what can very often happen is you think you see something that says that we're going to continue selling and would cause you to like short into 09, and then it never happened, or like it'd be really, really slow and never really go anywhere until finally going back up to 10.5. And then at 10.5, you see something that makes you think, oh man, maybe they're going to skyrocket out here and make that 12 again. And then it just kind of continues to go sideways between 10.5 and 9. Excuse me. Right? It's very difficult. based on the knowledge that I have, to know if it's going to make a new high or if it's going to retrace. It's very difficult. It doesn't mean that it's never worth taking a trade, because they can give you a risk reward that's good in here, and you can take some stuff out of the range too. Elon Musk slams SEC after decision to hold him in contempt of court. The E-midi's pushing down a little bit again. So only 172 were willing to sell into 09. Despite pulling, it's going really slow this morning. I need everyone to get in the S&P short with as big of a size as your account will allow things. Right? Come on, guys. That margin is a little bit lower, so you can afford to stick on maybe a second contract there. Short the E-mini with your day trade margin. Okay, there they are, ticking up a little bit. Oh, the heck, scalp the air? Oh man, if you get an impatient already, then this is the wrong instrument for you. But it's also the right instrument for you, because you gotta learn to be patient. And sometimes in the E-mini, you have to wait for a good 30 minutes. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend staying in a trade for 30 minutes. I mean, you can, but sometimes you have to wait 30 minutes to an hour before it gives you a good spot or a clear indication of which way we're going to go. Like really, if you have a lot of money, why would you be putting it at risk right now? Doesn't really. I mean, I can see I have a spot at 09. So I'll leave that up. But otherwise there's no reason. Is rollover tomorrow? So Marajan, the way that the rollover works is that first call is on the first day of the month. So people could continue to trade the back month. Like there's not like one day where they say, "Oh, you have to roll over now." Doesn't work quite that way. And as we were pointing out earlier, there's advanced quarter-over-quarter GDP on Thursday. And I'm not sure how the rollover is going to affect that. What you might see is people continue to trade the old contract until Thursday and then trade the new contract when that news comes out. Potentially. And another thing you can do is there is on the CME website, there's a tool that called Pace of the Roll, and it will show you how much of the volume has moved over compared to, on average, how much of the volume would have moved over by this point, to see if the roll is going slower or faster than normal. But they do say, when is the front month contract starting, right? I mean, I don't think so. Like, because we were just pointing out earlier, in the Discord that Thinkorswim has already switched. Thinkorswim has said that the new contract, to trade the new contract, right? So there's not like a clear indicator, but the one date that I would consider would be the day where it's like you got to do it is the first day of the month, because when it is actually March, they can call you, right? If you can still trade March, but if you hold a position, it could get called, and then you would have to provide $1 million in treasuries, right? 100 needs to man up. So have you taken any trades today, Lucas? Since you said that you missed the pop. No, the Uzi hasn't. No problem, Martin. I'm glad that answered your question. It's, so another thing that I'll say is that sometimes you might just be better off just kind of watching, because it's always really difficult around the roll, I've found. After the roll, okay, so here comes the E-mini and their first impulse is buy. That's interesting. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Perdue, no response yet, but trade negotiators have asked China to reduce tariffs on U.S. ethanol. First says slow, boring, chunky trading. Wait 5 minutes for something to happen, then 5K trades, and then wait again. That is what it feels like to me. Looks like the House is set to vote on the measure revoking President Trump's emergency order. We'll see what the Senate does. That's going to be interesting. Okay, there they go at 10. And there's the E-mini is selling. So if I had been filled at 09 right now, okay, so it went through there at 10.5. So I could potentially take 10.5, but it wouldn't be terrible to wait for more. On the same token, I'm not so sure that I can just go short here. Oh, the E-mini's selling, but it's not falling apart. It could actually turn it around here. There's this big old fatty order here in ZB, that big order at 25. There's like 500,000 contracts traded today. So it's difficult to read the action on rollover wheat, not just one day. That's why I was so confused. It seems to me that the reasons to trade the contract at the end of the roll, at the end of the contract, are very different from the reasons to trade it at the beginning of the contract. For instance, one thing that was pointed out to me in an article somewhere, and I don't even remember where I got it from anymore, but if you're trading the S&P 500, then they often want to hedge themselves against interest rate risk. And so you have a lot of interest in trading the ZN at the beginning of the E-mini contract, for hedging purposes. But when you get to the end of the contract, there's not as much time, so you don't have to worry about that interest rate risk as much because it's insignificant at the end. Less reason to trade the treasuries, right? And the same with, there's a lot more activity, September through March or so. And so when we switch over into the March contract, you're running into a situation where there's less interest in trading it. I'm wondering if I could have taken it short at 10, but try it. So far, okay. Okay, so that's not behaving the way that I want. How come your profile is so much thinner than mine? I have 90K contracts traded shown on all prices between 09 and 105. I don't know. That is kind of weird. Perhaps your profile goes back further or something? I don't think that 90,000 has traded at 10.5. Could be wrong, but okay. Oh, speech by ECB's Mersch on lending and payment systems in upheaval, the financial tech challenge. I don't think they're gonna fill me out at 10.5. So far, the open in the E-mini actually looks pretty positive, I think. Microsoft and VMware working on cloud partnership. No, I'm trying to get. I don't have anything. I don't have a position, right? I I have orders on the edges of the range. So my working right now is that you have some significant resistance above 10.5. It's possible that if the E-mini moves up, I could get short 10.5 and then get filled back again at 09. If it doesn't do that, I could potentially sell 09.5 and hope that I get the fill at 09 real quick too, if it ever does that. You're letting the banks work for you. I don't know about that. So there's a bit of a sell in the E-mini. Merkel caucus could accept Brexit delay until end of June, but not beyond. So they did sell there, but so far it's been a pretty weak sell, actually. It hasn't resulted in very much volume over here. That's why I'm like, oh, by the way, I don't need these. Okay, so are we ready for the chairman to speak? When does that happen? At 8. Okay, so I did get filled. I did not expect them to be holding as strong of a bid there as they are. The E-mini still is kind of like, yeah, you got to sell there, but it's still not a very strong sell. Like the cumulative delta is still up there holding. If that's all the price action that the sellers can get, then I think that there's a really good likelihood that they push up higher again. It's hard to resist making these sorts of strokes when the pressure's on. So much cynicism constantly coming from traders on social media. They stole my money taking my stop. My profile and market orders are 2 times bigger than yours. I just figured that out. Hey, Marjan, are you using Jigsaw? Should I avoid trading during this speech? You should avoid trading in general. It's going to be difficult action, I would say, because what you can see often is slow trading during the speech, interrupted by quick moves. Okay, Marjan, are you using the Jigsaw? The NinjaTrader 8 bridge? That's a good response, Thomas. If you have to ask, might be a good idea to just not trade it. Look at the cumulative delta pushing higher there in the E-mini. Okay, so Marjan, check your market analyzer and make sure that you only have the bridge column in there once. Because if you have something like, if you do the market analyzer here, if you have something like you added the column twice, or like you had a second tab here, or you had a second market analyzer open somewhere else, you can get that double volume thing. Because I've gotten that before. Check and see if that's what's going on. When that happened to me, I added a second analyzer to be able to see the front month contract, or sorry, like the June contract, you know? And then what ended up happening was I was getting all of the data twice. So I would see, I would be looking here and I would see like, 20K hit 10F, and I'm like, that's like some crazy volume. Like that never happens. For like a week, actually, we were seeing that. And then finally somebody said, hey, you know what? I'm not getting that as big of a number as you are. And we figured out that that was what happened. And I actually alerted Jigsaw to it, and it took me a little bit to convince him that there was a problem, but eventually he understood what was going on, and he put it on the list to fix. But make sure that you don't have the column on there twice, because you can get double volume through the bridge. John is considering having another webinar this April. That's interesting, because he usually only does it like twice a year. Well, I think that if you have the means and time availability to take the webinar, like it's like a 2-week webinar, right? I think that it's totally worth it. If only because you get the opportunity to ask him questions and stuff, right? I know he made one just in January. I wonder what happened. Okay. So now there's a little bit more of an extended cell in the E-mini. That's interesting that when that happened, that the 11 went bid, but then it's gone back. Okay. Powell sees favorable economic outlook with some cross currents. So favorable normalization is dead. That does seem to be like what the way that they're reacting to it. The E-mini did sell on that news. That must have been what caused that. I had the JT connection both in the market analyzer and as an indicator on my ZN chart. That would do it. My 10.5 went offer. Ooh, I'm liking it. I'm liking this momentum. Should be easy to get filled here because I'm 366 in line. Come on. Just sell. You just need one order there. Just one guy. Where's Zerv? Zerv loves to be that first one to see. Okay. Somebody did it. Okay, the statement is online now. Okay. Boom. Love it. And look, there was an iceberg there. They're still fighting it at 09, so I don't know if it's going to continue or not. I feel really clever now. I've done that trade a few times, and I've like really screwed it up in the past. And it's always been like, well, okay, but like I think that I just need to get better at managing the trade. And was able to take it. Was able to get it. Algo's angry Powell not seeing the apocalypse. I don't know. This action seems kind of random, doesn't it? I had to jump out of the room for 5 seconds, and then that's why I don't watch ZN to trade ZB. ZN looked like it was going to break higher, but ZB didn't. Interesting.
And they sold it so fast there, right? Well, they are hitting into 085. Like, it could continue. It wouldn't surprise me to see us move all the way back to the open at 0.5 half. But it's super hard. Okay, so Thomas, I wonder about slippage in these situations. With a wide stop, I can do pretty well in theory at least, but when I get hit, what price will I get? Okay, so if we're sitting at a price, well, like, so for instance, we are at the bottom here, right? And there's 3,000 bid at 0.8. And let's say that you have your stop at 0.8, okay? Sure. Let's say that you just barely put your stop at 0.8, right? We tick down and somebody decides to sell everything at 5,000. Then your stop is going to hit and it is going to take 0.7 half. So you get a slippage of 1, right? That is pretty much the only situation that you're going to get that kind of slippage in ZN. So in ZN, you can literally set your slippage at 1. And even if you use a volume stop, even if you're using a volume stop like I do, like these ones. So like, this order's not going to trigger until the offer is less than 876. And I just picked that number randomly, right? So even if you set it like that, you're almost never going to get more than 1 tick of slippage, right? Now, if it was like, the Fed interest rate decision, and there was some sort of surprise in the statement, then maybe you could run into a situation where you get more than a tick of slippage, right? In a low liquidity market, that can happen, but generally speaking, in the ZN, you're never going to get more than a tick of slippage, right? But that just kind of plays into the whole math of things, right? The average range is 4 to 5 ticks. So if you take in 2 to 4 ticks on a trade, you're mostly picking up noise, which is what I've done today, right? Because I've been expecting it to be relatively slow. So if you get a tick of slippage every time, then you probably come out maybe just a little profitable, if not break even, assuming that you're doing everything right and you're doing well, right? But if you aren't getting a good entry price, then you don't get, as good of a profit on the upside that you're going to get, then you're not going to be profitable. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I guess the whole point that I'm trying to make is that for me, at least, with the way that I trade and the way that the ranges are, the price that you catch matters a lot. And having it be 1 tick off matters. And having it 2 ticks off or 3 ticks off is like you can't do that, So to be able to go in there and take 10 half, well, if you guys recall, I originally took it short at 10, and then it did stuff to me at 10 half. So I said, okay, 10 is not the price. So I
I knew that I was in a trade from a bad location, even though maybe it was a good trade. And so I got out. I scratched that trade and got in at 10.5. And then I knew that I was in the right spot. And you could even do that on the bottom here. I could have said, okay, 09 does look like a good spot, but it actually looks like I can actually get 05, 085. So maybe I can sell 09 and I can buy 085, to get that side. My mistake was that I didn't get out when that big step at 10.5 appeared.
This is a big deal for me since I haven't tried it live yet. There's very little easy to come by information fills, or at least it appears that way to me so far. Would wager because they obviously vary over time with the market and it can't be known from month to month or year to year. Well, so I've found that the Treasuries pretty consistently the liquidity oscillates between 4,000 and 5,000. 4,000 is kind of like at the lower end. If it's below 4,000, like I just straight up wouldn't trade it. Digital Shot says, well, I shouldn't speculate at all if we are going to hold or not. There was tons of volume building and I should have taken my Vortex. Digital Shot saying I shouldn't speculate. I should have taken my 4 sticks. That's... I mean, they're getting good hits there at 0.8 I think there's a reasonable chance you could get the VWAP, but this 0.8 is probably not the best spot because you've got a zipper forming here, right? 823 on the bid. If they sell down, there will probably be 500 to 800 on the offer. And it might tick back and forth there a couple of times. And you can see last time we traded down into 08, only one contract. Last time we traded up into 09, only one contract. So all of the
This 085 seems to be like the fair price at the moment. If you wanted to take a short and you could get 09 or above, then it would maybe be okay. But again, you would have to sit down and say that I have a really good probability, because your risk to the upside is still 5 ticks, and your reward to the downside is like 3 to 4, because I would use the VWAP as my risk, as my reward to the downside. Maybe you could do it at 055, but your probability from it decreases after 07 at the VWAP. Bum, bum, bum. Oh yeah, so I had a thought for Thomas here, right? So he was saying it. I would wager because they vary over time with the market and can't be known from month to month or year to year. Generally speaking, there's going to be 4K at any price in the treasuries, but you'll also notice that when they actually tick up or down, it's usually not a 4K printing every time. Usually not. If you're on the edge and there's like an iceberg there or something, then you'll see 5K. And 5K or above at any one price is actually a lot. Or it's significant. I view it as significant. 10K is like a big one, but 5K is enough to pay attention. But we usually will clear a price with less than that. So in the 10-year, when you're looking at the DOM and you can see how many traded there to make price tick up or down, you get a pretty good idea of if you would have gotten filled or not. And you not only that, but you can totally just trade the queue. Like, I mean, basically what I did there was I traded the queue. I got in, I put a buying order in a spot where I knew that there was going to be difficulty getting filled. And because I never got filled, I just said, okay, I'll wait, because I think that there's a good chance that I come back to my price. And I'll just have that be my take profit. It worked out perfect.
Right, just saying volume is not a constant. Forum board members probably wouldn't like to answer. Yes, you'll get filled, always guaranteed. You've been more forthcoming and helpful there. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Alligator says, I've let it go and punished for my recklessness. Oof. Well, I'm still kind of sitting here like maybe I should have held it, but that's the edge says that I have to take it at 09, so I did. Looking to take my last part of the short here, maybe let it drop a little more. So did you did take it short then up at the top, huh? See, this is where one of the spots where it's hard is when you get this zipper thing right here. So I did a ton of statistics. Like, okay, if you have a zipper and it's so far, what's the probability of something happening? If you have the zipper and the cumulative delta does this, what's the probability? Or if you have, an iceberg there, what's the probability? Like anything that I could find that I could do programmatically in NinjaTrader 8 on this one range chart, that to try and figure it out. And in almost every way that I took it, almost every study that I did, it always came out to 50-50. Except for the one outlier, which is when it comes to 11 ticks, then there's like an 80% chance that it reverses. But every other one, it's like 80, it's 50-50. There's probably a way to see it. But for me, it was 50-50. Oh, 215? In the 5-year. Or maybe you're trading June contract, because that doesn't match up with. I was expecting you to say like
I took it at 10.5. Should I pull up the Powell here? Oh, Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index was 16 versus 5 estimate. Maybe that was what moved us. There was a couple of numbers there. I was not on the ball there, guys. I apologize. Okay, well let's search here for. Can't do CNBC. No. Needs to be live. I really hate the way that YouTube has changed some things, because it really is not. There should be a nonprofit. It's either going to be the Federal Reserve or the Senate committee that does this sort of a thing, and they probably have a YouTube stream set up. And that should be like the number one result when I search for this sort of a thing on YouTube, and it's not, and I'm not seeing it. Right? It's giving me CNBC. So screw that. You do have a good setup for a VWAP bounce here. $122 and 2.5 in June. I see. I gotcha. No agenda there. They changed the search results to only include mainstream media outlets when you search for news stuff. I mean, it sure seems like that's what's happened. It seems to me that it is much more difficult for independent content to be found these days. So if you actually want to do like news, it's much harder to do it than it was in 2016. The past 3 years is when I've seen this change. If you just want to post stupid videos of you and your friends doing, teenager things, you can still get lots of random people finding you. But if you're actually presenting information or making arguments or sharing ideas, it's harder to be found. Yeah, everyone in the establishment is adjusting to an Alex Jones style scare. So this brings us back to the thing that I wanted to talk about earlier. There is a documentary on Netflix called Behind the Curve, and it is about people that believe in flat Earth. And the video is hilarious. It really is, like, really funny, because you got these people talking about the flat Earth, and then you have like scientists, they cut between them and scientists, and then the scientists are able to destroy their arguments like so easily, and it's just like, man, like, what? And the whole thing is like, what could possibly cause people to believe in a flat Earth? Like, is there something loose up there? And they kind of go into it. They kind of do things that they kind of ask that question, like, is there a screw loose in this guy? No, it's just they're not educated and they believe something different, and the human tendency is to have irrational beliefs and stick with it. You heard about the guy who propelled with a rocket as high as he could to see if the Earth was actually round, and the flat earthers financed him? Yes, and but I don't remember what happened. I don't think anything really happened with that yet, right? Like, I think he tried it, but it doesn't go high enough or something like that. It's anyone's guess where the market might go now. Well, now that Powell is speaking, I don't know if I want to. Given I didn't realize that news that was going to come out at the top of the hour was going to affect the market as much as it did. So I kind of feel like I got a little lucky there. Anyways, in the documentary, there's two things that they do. So there's flat earthers. They're trying to prove that the Earth is flat. One of the things is that they're saying that the it's ridiculous that the Earth is spinning, and that the Earth is rotating around the sun, and then the sun is rotating through the galaxy, and that we're actually flying through space, relatively speaking, at a very, very high speed. They think that that's ridiculous. They're like, we should fly off the Earth if you jump, which is silly, because, like, if you're in a car and you throw a ball up in the air, the ball doesn't just go flying back. And I get that from, the scientist in the documentary. That was his argument. He said, everybody knows that momentum is conserved, right? Anyways, so these guys, they said, well, if the Earth is spinning and you have a gyroscope, then the gyroscope will resist the spin, and you should see drift in the gyroscope over a certain amount of time, and it's something like 15 degrees every hour, right? And so they went and there's these gyroscopes that are incredibly accurate, and that they put into, like, large boats for navigation. So these guys, they went and they bought one of these gyroscopes, and they did the test, and the test was, we should see drift in the gyroscope. So if you don't see drift in the gyroscope, then the Earth is flat, right? So they do it, and sure enough, they get 15-degree drift in the gyroscope. And so they say, like, in the document, like, the guy is saying, well, obviously we weren't just going to take that as an acceptable result. So now we're trying other things. So they tried putting it in a chamber that would, like, isolate it from like heavenly energies, because maybe it's rotating because of the sky and not because of the Earth rotating. So they put it in a chamber, and it still worked. So then now they want to put it in a bismuth chamber, which, by the way, what is I don't know why they want to put it in a chamber, like what it is about that particular mineral that would shield it from things. Anyways, I don't see an immediate answer to that question. But anyways, they want to put it in a chamber and do it. And they're all talking about it because they wanted to present it at this Flat Earther conference. But they couldn't, because their result proved that the Earth was round. And these are, like, fairly prominent people in the Flat Earth community. If they want to go counterculture, though, I applaud them for doing their own thing rather than just falling out of line with fear, even if they're wrong, and I don't respect that part. Yeah. Well, so the thing that I think, so I have two thoughts about this. One is, I've done some debunking videos before, so I'm thinking I should do a Flat Earth debunking. The one of the things that I think is funny is that one of my most popular videos is the one where I debunked some of the theories that were going on about the Las Vegas shooting. Now that one has turned out really interesting because we never found out what his reasoning were. But almost all of the things that I said in that video later on that week were proven through, and they're like foregone conclusions now. But yeah, that's one of my most popular videos. So I'm wondering if I make a video about debunking flat Earth, how much interest will that video receive? Because YouTube said that they're going to like, that they don't want these channels monetized and that they don't want them really appearing in the search results and this sort of a thing. Like it sounds like YouTube is taking out the flat earthers. You know? But I like to talk about conspiracy theories because it's the perfect example of this mental phenomenon that we have where, like, especially confirmation bias, where despite all evidence to the contrary, we will tend to stick to our beliefs. And it's like an important thing in trading because it's like it will happen to you. You will think, there's a very good chance that this is going to go higher here. Maybe I buy it at 07 because it's a VWAP bounce, right? And you're convinced that it's going to go higher. And then it ticks up to 07.5, 08. And maybe there's strong absorption at 08 and like a really big offer shows up. And like there's just all of these indications that it's going to go through 08. And if you still think that it's going to VWAP bounce, what are you going to say? That's an indication that I'm right because they're trying to scare us out of the trade. And it's a trick, and that big order is going to pull and we're going to go higher. Right? So we all do it. We've all done it before to some extent. And when you look at the flat earthers, it is like that same psychological phenomenon, but just on a larger scale. And the thing that gets interesting with the flat earthers is that it's like it's a culture for them. So I thought also that this was just a 4chan joke gone wrong, but that's actually not what happened. I remember people doing like talking about flat earth like way, way, way back, and it was like a joke, like a 4chan joke, right? But actually what happened was there was a guy on YouTube that started making videos and he became popular, and then a bunch of other people started making videos and they formed this online community just in the past like 5 years or so. It's been a completely organic thing that's just kind of shown up, and they all have like their little community, right? So I wonder if I make a video debunking a flat earth, how much traffic would the Google algorithm send to us? That would be interesting. I'm going to be careful though, because I don't want the channel to turn into a bunch of people invading chat every day, talking about wanting us to debunk the flat earth. But it's important to understand that bias is not wrong, being out of normal is not wrong, and so forth, but still debunk the wrong ideas. Ding, ding, exactly. And so here's the second part of the thought, is that I'm going to call it faith, all right? Basically, everybody has a belief that they probably cannot completely defend completely. They might not completely understand the thing that they're talking about, but they still believe it. And so I would call that faith. There seems to be this idea out there, like I think of it as like Spock. Like Spock is an admired character in science fiction, right? And what is Spock? Spock is supposed to be a being that functions completely on logic. And we revere Spock because
In Star Trek, he's always the smart guy. He uses logic and science to tell us the way that things are in places where we might not understand it or we might not see things clearly. And oh, if only we could all be like Spock, then we could all be that smart and we could fix so many of our human nature problems. Now, of course, Star Trek also talks about the problems with the lack of emotion, but I think that they get Spock wrong. I think that if you were a Vulcan, if Vulcans existed and they really were beings that acted purely on reason and logic, you would never be able to function. You literally wouldn't be able to function because you would be paralyzed by the fact that most things you simply don't have enough information to really know for sure. Just like here in trading. I don't know for sure if we're going to hold O7 or not. But you might have, because it's a prediction and it can go either way, but you might have a stat that says that historically, when we come back to here in this kind of a situation, it's long. And so you take it. Your part of your trade is based on faith, even though you have stats to back it up. Part of that is based on faith, right? If you're a Vulcan and you're based on logic and you can't know for sure and you only act on pure logic, you can't take that trade. Mm-hmm. He's not actually logical throughout, just very ideologically savvy and adjusted to modern culture. Yes. Yes. But that's my whole point, is that person cannot actually exist. If our trading was based purely on logic, we would be like a computer, right? And the computer wouldn't be able. The computer can only trade because it takes our own biases and trades based on our biases. You know. Well, I'm using the word faith very loosely here, aren't I? Right. But my point is that a being that operates on pure logic would be paralyzed. They would be paralyzed. You would constantly be living with the thought that of what you don't know. And haven't you ever been in that situation when you're trading? Is you can't do anything because you don't actually know what's going to happen. You don't actually understand what's happening. Some big bank could be out there buying something because of some geopolitical thing, or some client needs to do something and you don't know about that. And you can see that something is happening, but you don't understand why, and you don't have that information. And so it's hard for you to do anything, right? We did come back to O6 half. I probably could have held that one, but this is an amazing. Now apply all of what you said, and you will see the truth to everything, right? Like, but that's the whole thing. It seems to me that this part of human nature, we view it as a flaw in human nature, but it's actually necessary for humans to actually function in the world, right? Does that make sense? It exists because humans were more likely to survive with it, especially the group confirmation bias, right? If you stuck along with the group, even if what you were doing, even if what you believed was wrong, you were more likely to survive simply because the group stayed together with that belief. Yeah. And now what's happening in our modern society is we're running up into situations where that belief and that cognitive bias that we have from groups could be potentially harmful to people. So I don't know if people believing in a flat Earth is like super harmful, but I guess it holds back scientific progress, or it could, because those are all people that could be advancing space exploration or whatever. If
everybody's going to have some beliefs that aren't provable, perhaps, then at the very least you could be conscious about which ones you choose, right? So I think about, like, I think the one of the problems that we're having, and this is going back to the thing that we're talking about way earlier that we never got into. It seems to me that what has happened is that there has been an anti-religion movement in the United States in particular, and well, in Western society, there's been an anti-religion movement. And so people have given up those religious ideas. And the problem with that is that this need for goes unfulfilled, right? Everybody's going to have some set of beliefs that they use to associate with other people. That thing used to be religion. And now that they don't have that anymore, they are searching for it in other places. And it seems to me that the places that they're searching for it are really, really harmful to society, right? Like, for many people, their political party has become their religion. That's dangerous. That's how, like, civil wars and shit start. You know what I mean? Emotions are a feedback system like many of our thought patterns, but of separate quality. Emotions are not what Rand called tools of cognition, which is not to say that they are not still very good in providing us with useful information. Yes. And then you're saying agreed. Groupthink is strong, especially in the US. Right. So I think my only conclusion is that there needs to be a conscious effort on behalf of people, maybe some people that don't necessarily believe a certain thing, to say, we need to believe this, and we should believe this thing, not because it's true, but because society functions better with it. Maybe. That's kind of like a work in progress, but think about that one for a little bit. If there was like, what would be like if you were to come up with a religion? I personally, I think that maybe it already exists, but that humans misinterpret it, are still kind of trying to refine their view of it. But what would be the set of beliefs that would be most beneficial to society? Right? Emotions are a memory system that never forgets. You'll always remember how you felt at a certain situation. That's so that's an interesting thing. I don't know if that's completely true, but that this part of your brain down here, that's close to your spinal cord, stores emotional memories, and that part of your brain is faster than the executive portion of your brain, and it's stronger. That's why, when something moves and we all freak out, there's O5 half. So if I had held that short, I really could have held it all the way back to the open. That was like my far target that I was like, I'm not so sure we're going to get to. Yeah. It's a little bit different from like your regular memory, but it's it's just like PTSD. If you were in a situation where a bomb went off close to you and you needed to protect yourself from it, then that memory gets stored in there, and then anytime that stimulus is applied, I think it's called the medulla, but I forget what it's called, but that lower part of your brain will react before anything else in your body is able to react, even before your frontal cortex is able to interpret what's happening, right? So this is like a reflex. And that's why for traders, like the place that would come out is if there's a rush of volume, sometimes you'll just FOMO into something without even thinking about it. And then only after you've done that, a few seconds later, do you realize, oh, okay, wait, now that I've actually had time to interpret what's happening, I realize that that click was almost just a reflex and that I really don't want to go long there, or whatever it is. Ayn Rand has some well thought ideas in this area. I'll have to maybe look in that. I've never read her stuff, so we're all programs living in a matrix until you wake up, and a lot of us are. Yeah. Anyways, so there was one other point that I wanted to make about this, and this goes back to I think I might make a video about this. It seems to me that in trading, if you're in a spot and you're concerned about making a mistake, one of the best ways to go through it is to say, how might I be wrong? Right? So like I said, okay, I take it short here at 10.5 because there seems to be some resistance here. And then, how could I be wrong? Well, it could just be a pullback. So it may actually come down here a few ticks, but then it might stop at 09 and just go higher. And so I took the profit off there, even though I knew that there was a probability, though probably less, but a probability that it could go all the way back to the open. Right? It's a residual valuation, a form of prejudice that can be right or wrong, not thought, but a sense impulse. Yeah, sure. Anyways, but I think that one of the ways to fight that cognitive bias is to always be trying to prove yourself wrong. To always be saying, okay, so if I have a theory, what are some of the things that could mean that theory is wrong? And we do that all the time. We see an iceberg there and we say, okay, well, I think that's an iceberg. That's going to hold it. But why might that not be true? Why might that not actually be what's happening? You know? The thing that I found interesting about this Flat Earth documentary was that they were always trying to prove that the Earth isn't round and spinning, right? They're saying, okay, you say it's spinning, so I'm going to make an experiment that would verify if we are spinning or not. You say that the Earth has curvature, so I would make an experiment that would verify that there's a curvature there. So they did another experiment where they took a laser and they were just shooting the laser over a really long distance, and that should be able to measure the curvature of the Earth. And they did it. You know, there's no gold behind her currency, right? No, I'm not. I mean, that's the thing that's funny is I like to talk about conspiracy theories, but I am like so anti-conspiracy theory. Like, I like to joke about it, but like, you know, the Federal Reserve is one of the ones that irks me the most. You know, they say that like, oh, the gold isn't there in Fort Knox, and so, you know, way back like 20 years ago, they said, okay, we'll take the media in here and you guys can look and you can see that there's gold in here, and they showed them and that there was tons of gold. But people still think maybe the gold isn't all there or something, right? I like killing conspiracy theories. I like arguing with people and proving them wrong. So the thing that I thought was interesting about that documentary was that they never did an experiment to try and prove their model wrong, because their model is ridiculous. I will draw you a picture of their model. Okay, so they think, let's bring these and we don't really need this one. Okay, here's their model. They think that the Earth is like a disc, right? And then they think that the sun is this light that runs in a circle around the Earth like this. And that's what causes days and night. Is the sun moving around in a circle around this flat Earth. I suppose you could be right that the gold might not be there and it wouldn't make a difference, but
think that if the gold wasn't there, you would be able to find it somewhere else, and people would have noticed by now where it was. Anyways, this model like makes no sense. So like if I just draw it from a flat perspective, right? Okay. Here's the sun is up here. The sun is moving around, right? If I'm standing right here, the sun is above me, right? Okay. And then when it's over here in India, I can't see the sun anymore? No, you would still see the sun. You would still be able to see it. Maybe it would be dimmer and it would be dark, but you would still be able to see the sun. Like the sun, you would never see the sunset if it was just up there, rotating around in a circle. It doesn't make any sense. Unless it was like, so far away then that, there was only like a degree of it, and maybe the mountains and hills and stuff obscure the sun, right? But then if that was the case, you could verify it, couldn't you, right? You could do tests about it. You could say, okay, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to have somebody stand here, and I'm going to have somebody stand here, and I'm going to see like where the sun is, and use that to the distance between the two of us to try and determine how far away the sun is. And then I could see, well, if the sun is only this high, because the truth is that the sun is like super, super far away and is much, much larger than the earth, right? And so if it was like this, then it wouldn't work, right? It wouldn't work. It would be daytime all the time. So you could easily do experiments that would disprove their model of the Earth, but yet nobody has thought to go and do experiments and things that would actually prove or disprove their model. It's kind of weird, right? Because they're so concerned about proving that the Earth is round. Take it from the other direction. That's more convincing to people, I think. That's my take on it. We have a double distribution filled out in the middle area, some and most volume at the top distribution. Yeah, so there's definitely a little bit of this going on. Right? But I think that it might be a little better to try and look at this further out. Right? So there we are further out. You can kind of see that we've really been back and forth here a lot. And there's a, there's a resistance up there. And there's a rising support channel right here like that. Right? I think harsh criticism can make people protective in that sense and lead to such faith. Yeah, but see, that's kind of the thing, is that if you go through and you're like, okay, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove all of your theories wrong. What you do is you say, okay, let's assume that you're right. Let's design an experiment that would verify that you're correct. Not that the Earth is round, but that verify that not only is the Earth flat, but that this is the way that the sun revolves around it, right? If they went on that exploration and they started doing any kind of scientific research, it would be very, very clear from the outset that there's problems with their models. They would at the very least have to modify their model. And that when you watch the documentary, they actually kind of show that there's some like significant division within the community, and some think that that it's like a dome, like some people think that it's a disc and there's a dome and that's the sky. Other people think that it's just an infinite plane. There's all sorts of weird thoughts, and they like disagree vehemently on it.
And there's one guy in the community in particular that claims to be like the person that came up with the flat Earth, and he thinks that all of these other people are like paid media shills. And I'm sure that he's going to say that, especially after this documentary, because he refused to be interviewed for the documentary, and all these other people were. And these other people, they say things like, even if I wanted to get out, at this point, I don't think I would be able to. If those dome believers are half correct. I just their whole model is like makes no sense to me. The other thing that I think is really funny is that they think that it's like it's a disc, and they think that here's the North Pole and here's the South Pole, right? And they think it's like that because the sun goes around here like that, and so that's why there's ice caps. And the reason that the oceans stay in is because the ice cap around the outside keeps the water in. And they don't know what is beyond that spot. And there was one guy that was saying, oh, maybe there is, we've never explored it this far, and maybe beyond this ice cap there's actually another place further out here with other continents that they won't tell us about. Like he had models and pictures like this. Isn't that crazy? I think the fact that they are a growing group is a big F grade for the general population of their critics. Yeah, so in the documentary, they mentioned that the scientists aren't doing a very good job at debunking what they say. Because one is that they'll always be able to come up with some other thing that's like, why might that be wrong? How does gravity fit in their model? I don't think it does. My understanding, I don't understand this that well, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question, but I don't think that they have an explanation for gravity. They think that gravity just exists and that it pulls everything down, but that they don't know what causes it. There are satellite images of Earth, yes, but they think that those satellite images are just paintings. That NASA just made them up. That's why that guy, he wanted to make a rocket. Because the first thing that you would do, you would think, is you would get a weather balloon, right? Because weather balloons can get up there high enough that you can see the curvature of the Earth. That you get a weather balloon and you could get up there and you could see it. But then they say, well, yeah, but then you're still using their cameras and everything, and that could be manipulated. So if you could get in a rocket, that's the only way that you could go up there and see with your own perceptions that the Earth is actually round. Same as what some would call a climate skeptic, even though I believe with 99% of the establishment, ridicule and exclusion has only led me to shut up and not ask questions anymore. It's a complicated situation. Yeah, well, that one's really weird because I have seen a number of pieces that make me kind of question it. So, like, the one thing that really made me go like, was that they did this study and they found that a lot of the thermometers and stuff that they're using to measure global temperatures are like next to concrete or buildings or things like that. And so that could be like, screwing up their measurements. But that alone doesn't lead me to think that like the whole thing is fake. But what I do know, just from trading the stock market and doing like back testing and things like that, is to sit down and to say that I can predict with 100% certainty what temperature is going to be like 100 years from now is ridiculous. It's not. You can't do it because there could be any number of factors that could change that you may not account into your model, and that your model might be wrong, right? So that particular part I have a big problem with. But my argument on climate skepticism is I don't know about that particular thing. So I'm just going to go and say, for the sake of argument, that there is climate change and that it is probably being caused by humans. Then what do you do about it? And when you look at the things that they want to do about it, I don't think that those things would solve the problem, or that those would be ineffective, because their solution is that we have to have socialism, right? Why is it that you need socialism to fix climate change? Do you think that's a little suspicious? If there really is climate change and the earth is going to, become uninhabitable because of hot weather, that is the greatest profit taking opportunity of all history. Okay? If you find a way to reverse climate change, if you invent the technology to reverse climate change, you will be the richest person in the history of ever. Okay? Because you will have invented a piece of technology that you can patent, that every country in the world is going to want. Right? But we need socialism to make it happen. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Flat earthers have several things in common: undereducated, scientifically illiterate. They usually don't make much money, dropped out of school, and are very upset the way that life has passed them by. I mean, that might be true. I don't know if that's really. I mean, has anybody done a survey to get that sort of thing? So one of the things that was funny in the video was that there was this guy, and he was kind of a weird guy, and he was like, well, the way I came upon flat earth is I was, doing brain exercises, like he memorizes things and stuff, and then he came across this, and that's how he became a believer. And he was saying that, like, well, like, the people say that these are poor people that, like, live in their parents' basements, but many of the people are very successful, and I've never met any of them that live in their mom's basement. But then, like, the big famous flat earther guy that they've been interviewing this whole time lives with his mom. So I don't know which one is true or not. To me, it's more comforting to know, maybe not comforting, but to me it would make more sense that they're normal people. Because I don't think that anybody is just, like, immune from these sorts of cognitive biases. That's one of the things that bothers me, is that nobody seems to think that they have that. But probably, just from talking with you guys, right? Everybody has something. There's some conspiracy theory. Everybody has some conspiracy theory that you can probably tease out that other people would think is crazy. Loan deposit growth hitting a brick wall. JP Morgan admits, blames QT, and higher rates, warns NIM could be hit. I'm just watching this right now and looking at where we are and everything. If the E-mini decides to turn around, because honestly, since they've come up and hit these levels, it's not particularly awe-inspiring. They're not just, like, simply trending up. So there is a chance that the E-mini moves down and we could be right back up there at the highs. Excuse me. The thing is that now that we've just established these two nodes, there's this node and there's this node, it's entirely possible that we could have another move up towards that other node and fill out this.
They are scientifically illiterate. Well, that's certainly true. Well, maybe not conspiracy theory, but hypotheses and theories others do not agree with for sure. Yeah. Well, you can always be a person that if it's a conspiracy theory, you automatically... I mean, that's pretty much the way that I am. Like, especially when it comes to politics, my rule of thumb is if you can't positively verify it, then I don't believe it. And until you positively verify it, it's just a theory. It's just like, oh, I have this argument with the people on r/politics all the time that, oh, Donald Trump is a traitor that's participating with Russians. Well, until you show me positive evidence verifying that Donald Trump colluded with Russians, right? Like some sort of signed agreement or recorded conversation with him saying, okay, you guys are going to post this information about Hillary Clinton and we're going to do this and this is the day that we're going to do it and all of those sorts of, it's probably never going to happen. You're probably never going to be able to verify it. And Mueller has been going on for 2 years and he hasn't had it, right? So probably. So maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't. But as far as I'm concerned, until you've proven it, it doesn't. Colluded is like the word conspiracy itself. Yeah, well, it's for sure. They definitely tried to pick a word that was vague enough that they could make it seem like anything, right? Like, to seem like that they're doing something bad. You know what? The E-mini has fallen. Pretty hard. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? It's 850. I'm going to keep a tight leash on this. If I do get it, I want to take it off at like 09 again. Oh, actually, 085. Because 085 was where the zipper was. I need to pull up the Bitcoin charts. It needs a definition before there can be a further conversation. Otherwise, two sides in their own bubble thinking they're just talking to one person. Yeah, I think you got a good point there. For sure. When two different sides have different vocabulary and stuff, it makes it difficult to have a conversation. Something that really bothers me about modern day progressive thought is that there is very much this intentional, it seems to me, intentional push to redefine things. So like a good example is that in order for something to be racism, there has to be a systemic cultural backing to it. So if you're a white person, you can't experience racism because you're the majority in your country. And I don't think that is never how I ever thought about racism. See, they're redefining the word so that you can't bring that argument up. So then, that was a strong uptick there. 3K on the uptick that time. It's kind of curious. It just seems to me like
like a strategy that's designed to have disingenuous conversations. You know what I mean? So then you have to have like a conversation, like you have to find a different word, like maybe discrimination. If you have been discriminated against in any one particular reason, for whatever the reason was, even if it was because you're white, then you've been discriminated against, and that shouldn't happen. And then you can have that conversation. But the fact that you even have to go that far, I think, is just kind of ridiculous. Okay, well, they're not holding a strong bit there, and I do have to go, so I'm just gonna do that. Oh, 7.5 was the one stop. Okay. So there's the notes are posted. Again, if you guys don't check out the Patreon, I would go and check that out. You can view, if you subscribe, then you get them every day. But if you don't subscribe, then you can still see posts from a week ago. So you won't be able to see today's post until next Tuesday. But you can read last Tuesday's one. And since we're going up into, when all the cray happened, you can see how the indicator was able to see what was going on in Bitcoin. So if that interests you, 100% would check it out. That's interesting. There's a lot of other comments in here talking about the racism. One Thomas saying that he's totally run into that argument before and that it's frustrating. Well, there was a strong buy there. Here's your speeding ticket. Oh, I mean your warning. Yep. Get that tie on, get in the car, drive to that job. Right. Well, so here's the thing with my account right now. I got two things going on. The first thing going on is that I know that historically past April, I don't do very well. And we've made some changes to the strategy, but we haven't actually demonstrated success in that area. So I definitely want to do that. So that's first thing. Second thing is that I paid somebody to do my yard last year and they didn't do it. So I'm probably going to have to sue him. But, so I'm saving up a ton of money to do the yard. Now, the good news is that after that, I'm in a pretty good financial position. So I believe that when we get back into the time period where we tend to do well, that we will be able to go live when we come to a time period that we know is good. But as I've said before, I do still have the account and I do have money in it and I can trade it live. And from time to time, I may be doing it, but I'm not going to say like this is the day that I go live because I feel like that's not helpful to anybody. So I think that it's better that we just kind of leave it as a vague thing as to whether or not I'm trading live or not when we get to that point. And then what I will do is then, at the end of the year, I can show you the overall performance or something like that, Elders Quorum. Yeah, I don't know. The problem with the yard is that we've been doing a lot of it ourselves. But you still have to buy things like grass and dirt and stuff like that. And we have some work that requires like heavy machinery, and that's kind of why we got into this crappy situation. Because we wanted to do it ourselves. Really did. Well, there you go. They're doing 7.5. I kind of thought maybe we could continue, but I just, I knew that I have to go. Anyways, it's a crappy situation, but it's fine. We'll get around it. What's the chance we both delete? Anyways, I wish I could talk more, but I got to go. So I will catch you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.